Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Creative Bird Strategy House of Clubhouse and our podcast live on Apple and Spotify. This is Joseph Scarice, your host and founder of the Creative Bird Strategies podcast. So here with some great sponsors as well. Love to rattle them off real quick because we always have to recognize our support staff. One, it's Percatech with Yardell Perkins, our Oz behind the drape. Without him, this all would not be all put together. Great supporter, great sponsor of the podcast. We have Abstract National, our nationwide title agency. We have MB Capital, and then we, of course, have Realty 411. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes. We're going to have a great discussion today on debt service coverage ratio versus loan to value, choosing the right loan metric for your real estate investment. So I'm going to plug some individuals in through here on Clubhouse to get some people getting going here, invite some of our colleagues in, and then we'll really dive into this. And, listen, this is open for everybody to come in, come up, ask some questions, get yourself educated, discuss your strategy, get it out there in the open. This is not a one-sided discussion. I want people to be involved. I want people to excel. I want people to do well with what they're doing. So I'm plugging people in right now, trying to get people in here. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes. We had a great discussion yesterday for about 65 minutes. I'm a big believer in really giving some solid detail in our discussions and really trying to get things out there. And we want to answer people's questions. We want to be part of your power team. That is what this is all made up of. There's not a room on this app right now. I can tell you that for a fact. One that offers consistent education every Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have now a podcast that we're national with. We're getting anywhere between 250 to 1,000 downloads a week. Week 3, we're at 11 episodes already. We now have national events in LA, Denver, Philadelphia, New York, Florida, Texas. There's not another group on Clubhouse that has been able to put this together like this. Not one. And I want to thank everybody for being part of it. I love meeting people through Clubhouse and the excitement of just meeting people and people appreciating what we're putting into and giving back. But I think this discussion today kind of ties into, we want to take you to the higher level of education. We really want you to better understand being the better real estate investor. And here's the podcast as well, link up top to Creative Bird Strategies. Follow us, download the podcast. I think as of today, we're now on YouTube, loading up the videos there as well. So we're YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Google. We're on all the podcast set up with Apple and Spotify. So we're really gathering steam. We're going to start doing some marketing. Also, I'd like to extend another opportunity. Anybody that's listening in.
I think we lost you, buddy.
You there?
I hear you, Joe.
Okay, good. Thanks. So if anybody would like to get some additional marketing for their business, who they are, what their why is, and like maybe say 8 to 10 questions, let's set up an interview. We've done a couple so far. They've gone very well. And I'm here to extend that to you complimentary as part of being part of the Creative Bird Strategies House. So any one of you here, I'd love to have the opportunity to interview you, expand your business, get you out there in front of people, and hopefully assist you in your growth in your business. So that's something that I'm extending to our listeners because I feel like there's a dedication and engagement that is so unique that, listen, Clubhouse has had its ups and downs, but you're still here the last several years following us. We've been here over 2 years now and celebrating, our presence with you and being part of what you're doing in your real estate industry. So let's dive into our subject today, debt service coverage ratio versus loan to value, choosing the right loan metric for your real estate investment. Real estate investment is not a one size fits all endeavor. It's a complex world with a multitude of factors to consider. When it comes to financing your real estate ventures, 2 essential metrics stand out: debt service coverage ratio, DSCR, and loan to value, LTV ratio. Each has its unique role and importance in the realm of real estate financing. In this comprehensive discussion, we will dive deep into differences between DSCR and LTV, explore scenarios when each metric is more relevant, and provide insights to help investors choose the right financing option based on investment goals. So understanding DSCR and LTV, like a little primer. Before we delve into the comparison, let's get acquainted with the two critical metrics. DSCR is a financial metric that assesses a property's ability to cover its debt obligations with its rental income. It's calculated by dividing the property's net operating income, NOI, by its total debt service, loan payments. DSCR provides insight into whether the property generates enough income to service its debt, with a higher DSCR indicating stronger cash flow and a lower risk of default. Loan to value, LTV ratio. LTV ratio represents the proportion of the property's value that is financed through a loan. It's calculated by dividing the loan amount by the property's appraised value. LTV is a risk assessment metric, with a lower LTV indicating a smaller loan amount in relation to the property's value, thus reducing the lender's risk. So let's take a little dive into some comparison. DSCR is significant. Comparing DSCR and LTV relevance and applications. So DSCR's significance, cash flow assessment. This DSCR is particularly relevant in scenarios when cash flow is a primary consideration. Commercial real estate. DSCR plays a critical role in commercial real estate transactions. Commercial properties often rely on a stable cash flows from tenants to meet their debt obligations. Residential rentals. Why DSCR is more commonly associated with commercial properties, it has gained traction in residential real estate investments. It's pretty much the topic of discussion. Particularly for multi-unit properties, investors can use DSCR to evaluate potential income generating capacity of residential properties and assess its viability as an income producing asset. Income driven objectives. If your investment objectives revolve around generating a steady stream of income, DSCR should be a primary consideration. A high DSCR indicates that the property has a strong cash flow, making it well suited for income focused investors. Timothy, good morning and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to discussion this morning, DSCR versus LTV, choosing the right metric for real estate investing.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, room. Thank you for having me up, as always. Great topic this morning. It's actually a confusing topic for me, and this is why I am glad to have you on my side and others I network with that are also in the financial realm. For me, I'm a little lost when it comes to using debt service coverage ratio versus using a loan to value. Like, I'd like to learn a little more about that, and that's why I'm here. I'm actually a buy and hold real estate investor up here in the Lehigh Valley. I know how to look at a property. I know how to look at databases. I know how to look at computers. I better know how to look at projects because that's what I do all the time. However, this is not in my not directly in my wheelhouse. So I always look to you and others who are professionals in that or in that wheelhouse to be able to provide. Okay, like if I wanted to do a multifamily. Would DSCR make sense, or would loan to value make sense? What vehicles can I leverage to help make those investments in real estate or fruition for me, or come to head for me? What would be best suited for what property I'm looking at? What would be best suited for if I'm doing a fix and flip, for example, or if I'm doing a wholesale or a buy and hold, et cetera, et cetera. So, Joseph, again, Matthew Doyle, buy and hold real estate up here in the greater Lehigh Valley, owner of Steel Hill Properties. Remember, if you can't buy it, steal it. And just as a reminder, we will be having a discussion this evening at 8 o'clock with Garrett Rhodes and myself discussing crowdfunding, which will help segue this conversation into that one.
Tim, please stay on mic for a few minutes. So you wanted to really get into understanding loan to value and understanding debt service. So there's some metrics here. So the higher the leverage, the lower the debt service coverage ratio typically. The lower the LTV, the higher the debt service coverage ratio in most assessments. But the most important piece to all this, what is the physical cash on cash return up and above the debt service coverage ratio? So what are you making per door? And what is the makeup of the asset? Does it have, say, 4 residential, 1 commercial? Is it just 4 residential? Is it Section 8? Is it market rent? You need to understand the asset, the short term and the long term thought pattern to it, because once you go into a 30-year loan, you also have different barriers set as part of that loan, Tim. So you have either a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 prepayment penalty, meaning that there's a penalty per year the first 5 years in that loan if you decide to refinance or sell the property against the loan amount, a 3, 2, 1, a 2, 1, or a no prepayment. Now, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is an industry standard where you get the best rate. If you want to lower the prepayment, it's a hit to the rate by a quarter to a half a point, depending on the prepayment option. Also, LTV impact rate. So anything from 60% has a base rate. So on Friday, I locked a rate for a client that didn't want to be more than 60% loan of value. I was able to lock him in at 6.95, which is the base rate today, okay, for commercial lending, because there's no risk in there. It's a lower LTV. The debt service coverage ratio really works very well. Once he went to 65%, it went up an eighth of the rate. Once it went up to 70%, it went a full half a point. It went to like 7 1/8, 7 1/4. If he wanted 75%, it went to 7 1/2. So the rate reflects to LTV. Also, the debt service coverage ratio, if it's 1.2 or better, your rate is stronger. If it goes below 1.2 and is above 1.0, the rate gets hit with a quarter to a half a point on the rate, depending on the loan to value. And then if it goes below 1.0 and is above 0.8, depending on the loan to value and that debt service coverage ratio, that rate is reflective to anywhere between a half a point to 3/4 of a point, because you have less debt service, you have a higher LTV, you have a whatever your prepayment is, but depending on what your exit strategy is, you're only going to hold it for a year. You're only going to hold it for 2 years. You're only going to hold it for 3 years. You're going to hold it for 7 years. You're going to hold it for 20 years. It all depends on what you're doing with that subject property. So you have to, whatever you're doing, you have to have a deeper discussion with your lending strategist to understand the capacity impact to the rate. Does that help you out, Tim, a little bit?
That does. Thanks, Joseph. I say it's a lot to take in a little amount of time, so I may have to revisit this every once in a while with you or somebody.
Well, I just created a new spreadsheet, Tim, that allows you to price your own deals out and see how it impacts rate and LTV and debt service. So if you're interested, you could obviously email and request for that, and I could send it out to you. And I'm very excited that I put together that matrix for you to be a better educated real estate investor.
Awesome, Joseph. Yes. Actually, I'll email you a little bit later on and take a look at that, if you don't mind.
Sounds great. Thank you, Tim. Mr. Jim Edenfield, good morning and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion, debt service coverage ratio versus LTV, choosing the right metric for real estate investing, and let's get an update on the Great Mile High Summit.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Clubhouse. I am normally from Colorado. That's where I live. But this morning, I'm out in, foggy Los Angeles out here for a last-minute getaway with the family, and it's having a nice time. It's just rough getting up an extra hour early for you, Joe. But hey, you're worth it, brother. You're worth it. Anybody new in this room, you need to get in the habit of coming here every week. He does give a lot of great information, quality education, too. And it's a good place to network. I've known people, or I know people that I've met on Clubhouse. This room, I see several faces in here that I've met in person. It's awesome to do that. Hey, I own 2 meetup groups in Denver. One is a Realty Investors Group, RIG, RIG. We meet 2 times a month. I also am a co-owner of Invest Success, which is a 12-month coaching program, and we've got 2 different groups that meet twice a month. And we've got a 12-month coaching person, face-to-face, hands-on. And if you're getting interested in any of that, it's in my profile. But the Great Mile High Real Estate Investor Summit, it is coming up. It's going to be here before we know it. And we've got a couple of discounts that are ending very quickly. The 15th, I believe it is, I've got in the chat. Yeah. $50 discount on your tickets is in, and you just use the code IS50 at checkout. I put the link in the chat as well for the website. our hotel rate. We're meeting at the Curtis Hotel in downtown Denver. Very beautiful, very exciting and fun place to visit and stay. Each floor has its own themes. We've got a room rate of $179 a night for our summit. That rate ends the 22nd, and the rates that weekend, they've got a lot of stuff going on downtown Denver. I think starts at about $212 up to $300. So if you're coming, come be a part of the summit and stay at the Curtis with us. Tim and I, we're going to be there starting Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday night, getting ready for this thing because we're hosting a happy hour down in Denver Wednesday night. Thursday, our vendors and speakers are going to start showing up and setting up. And Thursday night, we're going to have a happy hour. Then we're going to kick this summit off officially Friday morning. We've got 3 sets of speakers each going on at the time. We've got about 30 speakers overall. But that'll be going on Friday. We got lunch included Friday and Saturday. There'll be happy hours in the afternoon and the night. And then Friday night, we're going to have dinner at the Curtis. Saturday, yeah, we're going to kick it off at 7 a.m. at John Fisher's Breakfast Club when our meetup group by Invest Success, and that's been going on for 20 years. It's probably the largest ongoing group in Colorado. So that's be great. Then we'll go right back across the street to the Curtis for an all-day speakers and education and networking. And then that Saturday night, we're going to kind of go back over to the Jazz, where we hold our breakfast and have a dinner and a jazz show. Sunday morning, we're going to get up and we're going to do a bus tour around Denver. Everybody that has a summit or a gathering of investors always likes to get on the bus and go around the area to see what's different in your neighborhood. And we want to show you what's different about Denver. If you keep hearing and listening, Denver is one of the top markets right now. So we invite you to come find out what's going on here. If you like to invest, that's good. A lot of Colorado investors are going elsewhere, but guess what? You got people from out here in California going to Colorado to invest. Because from where they sit, we're a much better deal. I know it's all relative to where you sit. We want to show you what's going on in Denver, but more important, we want to hear what's going on in your neighborhood. So come join us for that week. It's going to be a great time. It'll be a fun time. And like I say, the website's up top. And save $50 ends March 1st and get that great hotel rate before 22nd because it's going to go way. DSCR versus LTV. You could say that even in a group of investors. And some of them would think, why is he speaking Greek to us? I've been very surprised at a lot of even seasoned investors that have buy and hold. Doing refinance, you mention those terms and their eyes glaze over. They're like, huh? What? So probably one of the top 5 things I tell everybody if you're getting ready to you're getting started to investing, get your education down, get your numbers down. And these are 2 sets of numbers you really need to know. You need to know how to be able to compare them and tell if it's a good deal for you. And because, like Tim says, if you're going to do a fix and flip or a buy and hold or short-term rentals even, they're usually looking at 3 sets of numbers for those 3 different ways to invest. Just get with Joe, get his spreadsheets, and he can do it. Hey, said Joe, I was on your Clubhouse, I heard you, I listened. I'm still confused. I think Joe, if you sent Joe an email, Joe would probably need some time on the phone to do some one-on-one stuff. And because these numbers are not my specialty, Joe, I'm going to throw it right back to you and let you take it because you are the expert.
Thank you, Jim. And I appreciate the updates of the Mile High Summit. So prioritizing DSCR is a cash flow emphasis. You really need to understand the cash flow and the debt service coverage ratio. We provide worksheets for you to better pencil your deal down, both on cash flow and debt service. If the debt service is strong, 1.2 or better, it still might not be a good cash flowing property for you long term. Now, again, if there's a lot of equity on the back end of the property, it might make sense for a flip when the market kind of rebounds and the timing of selling that property off. When do you prioritize loan to value? When there's risk mitigation. If your primary concern is minimizing risk and preserving equity, a lower LTV can provide a safety net against potential property value declines. Property appreciation. you're banking on property value appreciation as a primary return on investment, a lower LTV ensures that you have a greater ownership stake in a potential profit. And then there's market volatility concerns. When market conditions are uncertain or volatile, a lower LTV reduces the impact of market fluctuations on your equity. Balancing both metrics and on debt service and LTV is an optimal approach. While DSCR and LTV have distinct roles, they are not mutually exclusive. In fact, a balanced approach that considers both metrics can provide a comprehensive view of investments' financial health and risk exposure. A high DSCR coupled with a conservative LTV ratio signifies strong cash flow and lower risk, making the investment more attractive for both investors and lenders. So you really want to get this new spreadsheet I put together, this matrix, for you to better understand how to price your deal out, understand LTV, understand prepayment penalty, understand also LTC, which is loan to cost, because how you buy the property, how you renovate the property, and how you create that forced equity in the property as well also reflects on the debt service coverage ratio and the market rent appraisal part to that subject property. So there's a lot of moving parts that you really need to get yourself educated on. You need to understand debt service coverage ratio, cash on cash return or cash flow. You need to understand how to price the deal out based on loan to value, debt service coverage ratio, prepayment penalty options. That's on the long term. On the short term, you need to know how to buy it, renovate it, also creating this forced equity, and do the comps make sense? And does the market rent based on the newfound comps make sense as well? We now have a rose amongst the thorns in here this morning. Good morning, Shani. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the discussion this morning. DSCR versus LTV, choosing the right metric for real estate investing. Shani, are you there? Shani going once? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Joe. So I'm Shawnee. I'm based in Eastern Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. Licensed realtor, investor, and I also work a lot with the buy and hold clients. I have clients that have properties, condos, homes, and I help, administer the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to tenants, leasing them, and things of that nature, and giving them recommendations. But I always leave it to the experts. I mean, it's so important that you understand your loan product. And I love what Joe said. Sometimes somebody will acquire a property and maybe it's not the greatest cash flow, but maybe you're acquiring it in hopes of flipping it at a different time. But it's really important that you do understand. You'd be surprised how many people go out as a beginner and just want to buy a property and have not analyzed the numbers. It's really important that you think about the property, the location, the dynamics of that location, what's going on in that location, and not just am I paying the mortgage? It doesn't make any sense for your long-term goals. So you definitely want to speak to the expert and recommend for you or anybody that's buying property. If you need to borrow money to buy the property, you need to speak to an expert about your options. And, before you acquire that property, you have to think the whole thing out long term. Thank you.
Thanks, Shani. I mean, listen, right now, rates are pointing up. They went up over almost close to 3/4 of a point in the last week. Okay. So right now, for all the real estate agents that are listening in, there is no spring market. It's not a seller's market. It's a stagnant market with high home buyer sentiment at an all-time high. People are gonna rent. They're not going to buy. They're not going to experiment with the market at above 7%. It's a fact. What does this market look like? It is a buyer's market for investors. This is an investor spring market. You could identify any class right now of property and see if the debt service coverage ratio works with the market rent in that space. Whether it's A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever level of classification to that property, does the debt service coverage ratio work? Does the cash flow work? Does the matrix of understanding rate to LTV to debt service coverage ratio, how you bought it, how you renovated it, and how you created that forced equity, does that work for the short or long-term play of ownership of that property? Right now, if you go on a Mortgage News Daily, rates closed at 7.14 on Friday. 7.14. Is that good or bad? I don't know if it's probably not good for the home buyer. It's excellent for the investor. Because if you buy right, you're making money. You make money when you buy. Understanding the differences between DSCR and LTV empowers investors to tailor their financing choices to their unique investment goals. Prioritizing one matrix over the other depends on emphasis placed on cash flow, risk mitigation, property appreciation, and market conditions. Ultimately, the synergy between DSCR and LTV aids investors in making well-informed decisions that align with their financial aspirations and pave the way for successful real estate ventures. In an ever-evolving real estate landscape where each investment is unique, investors can find success by mastering the art of balancing these two very critical metrics. By striking the right balance between DSCR and LTV, investors can optimize their financing options, mitigate risk, and maximize the potential for long-term wealth creation through real estate investments. Remember that while each metric provides valuable insights on its own, it's a harmonious combination of both that leads a well-rounded and prosperous real estate venture. Good morning, Justin, and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the discussion this morning. DSCR versus LTV, choosing the right metric for real estate investing.
Good morning, Joe. I'm driving this morning, so I won't take too long. And my thoughts on this are kind of cut and dry as far as what I've had the privilege of learning. And so I'll say this, right? I look at it's funny because I've always looked at from some degree, right? Now, I've always looked at any potential investment from the similar lens of a debt service, right? So when we're analyzing a property that we're looking to purchase or, what have you, we're going to be looking at how am I going to pay for this property? Why is it beneficial, right? What are the things that I believe debt service loans, they're focusing on that cash flow, right? But as an investor, I feel like the way you analyze deals should be quite similar, if not identical, to what that lender is looking for. It's almost like the metrics that you should use to qualify yourself to see if this is something of interest. So I just wanted to throw a little different perspective on DSCR loans. Most of us are familiar with the loan to value, right? The loan based on what its potential value is. But when we're looking at something that's an investment or an additional property or not something that's a roof over your head, and so your chances of defaulting on that loan from a lender's perspective have increased, then I think it's just wise to use that same metric when looking at properties regardless. And that's my just quick opinion on that this morning.
Justin, thank you. And Justin and I have off Clubhouse discussions all the time. I mean, and Jim made a very good point. I am willing to have any type of strategy discussions with anybody listening in. I want to make sure you're an educated borrower, an educated real estate professional, or educated real estate service, because you're providing service to people depending on your knowledge and your insight. Okay, so if you need the worksheets and work them through, I will take 15, 20 minutes and go through those worksheets. And I want to thank Timothy already. He already asked for a copy of the pricing matrix to better understand how to price out his own deals. Like, who's willing to provide that type of insight? Okay, there's not a room on this app that's offering these educational tools to make sure, one, you're buying correctly. Two, does it debt service? Three, does it cash flow? Four, is the rehab construction when you're buying the property make sense with the draw schedule? Then six, understanding your pricing for the long-term refinance on that subject property, whether it's what LTV you should be at, what type of prepayment you want to be at, what rate you want to be at, what's the debt service coverage ratio you need to be at. Do you notice that we don't use capitalization rate? Listen, let's be honest. Most of us are in the single family through four family space or 5 through 25 units. That is a debt service coverage ratio environment. It is not a capitalization rate. Cap rate is a real estate equivalent of stock market returns on investments. It's a ratio between the amount of income produced by a property and the original capital invested. It tells you the percentage of investments values at profit. The cap rate divides your net operating income, NOI, by the asset value when you're in the acquisition phase. This will be the property sale price. It has nothing to do with the long-term hold. Later on, you'll use this to leverage your local realtor or broker to come up with a value to sell the property. We're having a discussion how to hold the property. So you're confusing the two. So when I see a licensed realtor or agent promote a single family through four family and emphasize that there's a capitalization rate to that property, I find them foolish. They should hang up their license and call it a debt. What is the debt service coverage ratio of that subject property? What is the cash on cash return? I have said this to so many realtors and they look like I have three eyes. Okay? You need to know what your rate of return on your money is. Mr. Joseph Martella, good morning and welcome. Thank you for your patience. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and I'd like to get a little discussion on DSCR versus LTV, choosing the right metric for real estate investing.
Thank you. And this is the first time you ever thanked me for my patience for having to deal with you. So I just want to put that out.
But that's well, I have to see you today. So, then you have to bear with me in sight.
So sorry for being late. I'm just getting out from looking at a property early in the morning. So debt service coverage ratio, right? And this is something that you teach me, and I want to say you teach me over and over and over again because I can never get the 1.25 into my head. I don't understand how that works, right? When you start saying cash on cash return, I understand that completely. When you start saying 1.25 debt to service, that's where I rely on your spreadsheets when it comes to all of that, and rely on you. But when I'm going in for a DSCR loan and I'm presenting it to you, Joe, I almost feel like the bank is becoming my partner and not just giving me a loan, right? And I'm getting another set of eyes on that deal to make sure that I'm not missing anything, right? I mean, even as a seasoned investor, with several rentals under my belt, several BRRRRs, investing in tax liens, it's always good to build that confidence in you when you've done your numbers and someone else is looking over and they come up with the same thing. So thank you as always for being there and looking over the loans. But DSCR definitely is beneficial. I mean, a lot of people look at it because they call it like the no doc loan, which is not 100% true, right? But it's also goes, your experience counts for something in a DSCR loan. So, but I'm here to learn.
Joe, why does cash on cash matter? Playing around with cash on cash return can help you determine the best way to finance a new investment. It's used when choosing potential investments and can help you forecast returns during the years you anticipate capital expenditures. So don't you take this into account?
Cash on cash return is primarily what I take into account. So I look at it this way, Joe, right? No matter how good an investment is, money's at risk, right? So whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40,000 at risk, 100,000 at risk, if I'm earning 7% cash on cash return and I can get 5.5% of the CD in the bank, then I'm really only doing it for 2.5%. So now I'm risking that money for 2.5% interest as opposed to 5%. So that where's cash on cash kind of return kind of plays a role in for me. If I could do something safely for 5.5%, then why am I doing a 2.5%? Why am I risking my money for 2.5%? So I think that's paramount. That also tells me, right, how quick I could cycle that money, right? So quick math. Right, if I'm getting a 20% cash on cash return, which my properties are getting it, and Joe can validate it for anybody who's questioning it, I know in 5 years I'm going to cycle that money again. So and get another 20% return on my money. So cash on cash return will tell you how quick you're able to cycle your money, the velocity of that money as well. So of course, you have to look at your maintenance and having a backup for that and what have you, but that's basically how it works for me, Joe.
So, you're looking at the internal rate of return too. I mean, I think it's almost the same thing because IRR, depending on the specific real estate asset, A typical IRR metric ranges from 10 to 20%. But it can vary widely. It's another valuable way to gauge whether or not the property is performing well to you. I mean, is that what you're thinking as well?
Yes, that's exactly what it is, Joe. I mean, you're in my head more than anybody else. So I mean, that's exactly what it is. If I'm not getting that value off the dollar that I'm investing, then I'm not interested, no matter how good the deal is to someone else.
So real quick, I don't want to encompass this, but this is really good stuff. I mean, like, where does the gross rent multiplier, the GRM, comes in? Why does GRM matter? The lower the GRM, the better, but you generally expect the GRM to range between 4 to 8. This will help you evaluate a potential deal as a good investment or a current asset worth holding on long term. I have more discussions with clients about are their properties making money? The GRM helps investors compare buildings, roughly determining a building's worth. It's calculated by divided the property's price by its gross rental income. A good GRM will depend on your local market and comparable properties. So where are you looking to kind of match up with that gross rent multiplier? Are you looking at Class C market, B minus? Where are you seeing the best bang for your buck?
Yeah, I mean, so we all use these technical terms, right? Gross rent multiplier, and that's one that I never really defined. Gross rent multiplier, right? I'm an old-fashioned guy, even though I'm much younger than you. I have to point that out, right? I do everything expenses and income, and then people want to come across with these fancy terms. So expenses, income, cash invested, and then divided by the cash flow divided by the cash invested equals your cash on cash return, or IRR. So the gross rent multiplier, I mean, that usually goes where if I'm know correctly on what you're referencing, right? Everybody says, oh, 1% of the cost of the house should be your monthly mortgage, and that's the rough numbers. I don't really go based off of that. I mean, I know a lot of investors do. They use the 2% rule, the 1% rule, and the 1% rule was created because the 2% rule wasn't working, right? So all of these terms get adjusted, and I just go based on the old-fashioned way of doing things. So, I will sit down and evaluate a property by hand and look at what the expenses are, your pity payment, HOA, any other fees that would go with it, and what the prospective rents in the area are on, and that would make sense to me. I don't go by any quick, steadfast rule.
Yeah, because I think the gross rent multiplier was a more niche spreadsheet to use prior to the onslaught of debt service coverage ratio loans. Okay, once the DSCR kind of took over, the whole lending practice of asset-based lending, I feel like gross rent multiplier kind of went away. It really wasn't a necessary evil because lenders weren't using it to figure out their numbers. They were looking strictly at debt service coverage ratio. They were looking strictly at cash on cash return. They were strictly looking at the LTV based on all this, and their metrics were the pricing was based on DSCR and LTV. So kind of gross rent multiplier lost its like lore in the landscape of DSCR 1 through 4 and even 5 through 25 units for the most part, right? I mean, who's really using that right now as a lender? Nobody's using it, right? Joe, your thoughts to that, final thoughts before we go to the next moderator? We lost Joe, I think. But again, that's just a thought. And again, I'm not holding anybody against using it. It's a tool. But right now, if all the lenders are using DSCR and LTV to price out their deals, it's nice to know how to work a gross rent multiplier spreadsheet, but use the ones that are basing your pricing. So the matrix I put together ties in the gross rent multiplier, ties in debt service coverage ratio, and ties in loan to value impact to understanding your pricing for your long-term hold and your short-term hold. I also have a bridge matrix as well, buying fixed to rent or fixed to flip to price your deals out as well. We'll go to back to the ladies. Good morning, Romana. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the discussion this morning, DSCR versus LTV, choosing the right metric for real estate investing. Romana going once. Romana going twice. Well, there you go.
Good morning, everybody. This is Romana. Hello, Joe. Thank you for having me up here. Hello, hi, everybody. My name is Romana, and well, I'm in the Hudson Valley, New York. I'm still an inspiring investor, and my background is in accounting. And right now, I'm a tax prep. I do taxes, individual taxes, and that's where I am at the office, working on taxes. Hey, these terminologies, I mean, this is great, DSCR and LTV. I am still learning that. And Joe, I couldn't have find anybody better than Joe. So, I don't have that hold on it, to be honest. So I'm not going to speak about it. I don't want to think, but anyway, I'm in the learning process and I have Joe to teach me. So I'm still in the process. So I'm really grateful that Joe is providing so much, knowledge, and he's also trying to help everybody out, and especially like me. I mean, he's always amazing guy. I mean, Joe, I'm so blessed to have met you. I'll never get tired of it. And my dear friend Jim, hi Jim, how are you? I missed you all guys in Denver. Hopefully, I'll meet you all, God willing, next year. I will. So, so I wanted to. Thank you. Also, I wanted to say I made a trip. Like I said, I was following Joe. I made a trip to New Jersey yesterday for SGREA. He was going to teach that asset-based lending. I was like, when I saw that, I said, oh my God, I don't care how far it is, I want to go. And thank God I was able to get there. But guess what? I didn't check my email and it was canceled due to the weather. But the fact that I was there, I was really excited. And I went in there, let me see if I can get in. I thought maybe everybody parked somewhere else. So I kind of lost the score, but it was all good. I called Joe right away and he was like, okay, yeah, we canceled it. So whenever there's one close by, and I do look forward to going to Philly, Joe. So, I pray I can get there. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Romana. Romana's been a great colleague and friend of mine since the beginning here. We met several years ago in Fishkill, probably only about a year or so after my stroke, and we've stayed in touch. She's been part of the clubhouse. She's been part of events that we've had in Philadelphia, New York, Denver, for that matter. And I really appreciate her friendship. And I'm rolling out a lot of speaking opportunities coming up. I'll be speaking at several places throughout the country, local, regionally, and nationally. I'm also I'm certifying a course, CE course, that's nationwide. So I know I got an inquiry this morning. If you would like me to teach a CE course, you're a licensed realtor, you would like me to teach a CE course on understanding asset-based lending. It's either a 2 or 3 credit course, depending on how long you want me to talk or present. I will sponsor a luncheon. I have to record the CE, though. The association or the organization can't do it. I have to set it up where they register with me. I load their CE, and they can get a 2 or 3 credit CE approval. Understanding asset-based lending nationwide. I'm just finishing up the write-up. It's getting approved. It'll be approved probably in about a week or two, and then I can take it nationwide with a 60-day notice. I could do it in any state in the country, for the most part. At least east of the Mississippi, but I could probably do some West Coast states as well. So, if anybody would like that CE course, whether they want to use it for recruitment or whether they use it for their office or for their association, I run the class. I sign people up. I load the CE on behalf of the real estate agents, and it's a great course. It's going to dive deep. It's all the spreadsheets that we're talking about are provided to all the agents. All the discussions are gone over with everybody, so they walk away with some really great education. So I'm kind of solidifying my why in the asset-based lending. I mean, I do work for now one of the larger balance sheet lenders in the country, Lendmark. We're based out of Connecticut, New York, and Florida. I head up the origination, and we are offering correspondent, or what you would call broker portals, to work with us, which I'm really excited about offering that to individuals or referral partners for that matter as well. So you can make either referral fee, you can make origination fee, You're protected. I mean, I am the only origination piece of Lendmark at this point on the retail side. So I'm extending that to anybody that's interested, of course. Good morning, Linda, and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and understanding debt service coverage ratio versus loan to value, choosing the right metric for real estate investing. And let's get an update on Realty 411.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, investors. My name is Linda Pliagas, and I'm the owner of Realty411.com. We're a news and information website for real estate investors. We also produce magazines, host live and virtual events, record podcasts, and so much more. Now, in regards to DSCR loans, which stand for debt service coverage ratio loans. These are excellent for real estate investors because banks rely on the cash flow of the property. Some of the pros to these type of loans include there's no income verification, quicker closing times, and investors can finance multiple properties. Now, some of the negatives of DSCR loans can include the fact that investors need a higher down payment to make the numbers work. Also, the DSCR loans typically have higher interest rates, fees, and closing costs. Now, with the loan to value loans, LTV loans, the measure compares the amount of the mortgage with the appraised value of the property. The higher your down payment, the lower your LTV ratio. As a rule of thumb, a good loan to value ratio should be no greater than 80%. If your down payment is below 20%, then private mortgage insurance will be required, which will add even more expense to your monthly payment. Now, I would like to say that one type of loan that I seem to go back to over and over again are the interest-only loan options. I've used interest-only loans numerous times in my career as a real estate investor. They're especially good in high price market areas like California, where properties just don't cash flow unless you put a really big substantial down payment. And typically I've used the interest-only loans in multiple scenarios where the price of the property is high, and I want to maximize my cash flow. My husband and I will typically refinance the interest-only loans after about 5 years, or when they appreciate in value, and then we can start hitting the principal that way. But I've used interest-only loans a lot in my career, and I find that sometimes this is the only way that you can get into a property and make the numbers work. But once you're in, you have that ability to be able to refinance later on. You can also pay down the debt before you refinance, and that'll help out tremendously. So these are just some of the ways that we've gotten properties over the years, utilizing different loan products. So in regards to Realty 411, we just wrapped up an event yesterday in beautiful Pismo Beach, California. I'm also happy to state that Realtor.com, along with Wall Street Journal, they do a yearly index on the top emerging markets in the country. And my backyard of Santa Maria was named the #1 emerging market in the nation for 2024. So we discussed what this means to our market yesterday at the real estate event that we hosted. And while everyone is really excited that our area was named the #1 emerging market, we know that that means that prices are really going to probably skyrocket in the next few years. So we're, telling as many people as possible that if you want to buy property in the Central Coast, now's the time to do it. And you better start getting serious about getting together a down payment to go in a property, because if people don't move within the next few years, they definitely will start getting priced out of one of the very few last remaining affordable markets in California. So thank you so much, everyone. Back to you, Joseph.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for the update. Look forward to seeing you in Denver, then Philadelphia. Really powerful opportunities working with Realty for one of our sponsors of the Creative Bird Strategies podcast. Again, I want to emphasize we're the only house app on this app on Clubhouse that has national events in collaboration with Realty 411. The only club that has educational subjects every Saturday and Sunday, and the only house that has a live podcast on Apple and Spotify with now 1,000+ downloads a week 3, and we're in episode 11. We already have 4 sponsors. We're also extending interviews with any real estate professional listening in and getting their marketing out in front of your market. Who is offering that? Okay, so that is a very unique thing that we're doing here. It's a family. Okay, so I wanted to throw that out there. I want to now go back to what Linda was talking about in regards to loan to value. Where does asset-based lending fall comparatively to traditional lending versus hard money, right? It's right down the middle. So we can go up to 80% loan to value, cash out, rate and term, purchase or refinance. We don't have a seasoning requirement because we're not a bank. As long as the property is stabilized, rented with a lease signed, we could look at the debt service coverage ratio and the maximum loan to value. We also extend options of 5 or 10-year ARM option with a 30-year amortized loan, which is adjustable, where most banks are balloons. We also offer a 10-year interest only with an adjustable on the back with a 30-year amortized scenario, with not a balloon, and adjustable. We also offer a 30-year fixed. We also offer no prepayment option, 1-year prepayment option, 2-year prepayment option, 3-year prepayment option, and 5-year prepayment option. That's where we separate ourselves from a bank. Also, we don't collect documentation such as tax returns, 1099s, W-2s, pay stubs. None of that. Half your checklist is thrown out the window. Now, on the hard money side, when it's fixed to rent, fixed to flip, we go up to 90% on the purchase and 100% on the construction. Now, again, there's some questions there that we ask on experience. How many rehabs have been completed in the last 24 to 36 months? How many flips have been completed in the last 24 to 36 months? How many new construction has been done within the last 24 to 36 months? Is your credit score above 660 or better? So we're not trying to be predatory. We want to make sure you have a true exit strategy because we offer the long-term money. And our rates start at 10.125 with an origination starting at 1.25. Where hard money starts no lower than 12% and 2 to 3 points. That's where we separate ourselves in the asset-based lending space. Oh, you're just a hard money lender. No, asset-based lenders are right down the middle. Know your lingo, know the differences as a real estate professional. Good morning, Kelly. Welcome. Do you have a statement or question in regards to our discussion this morning, DSCR versus loan to value, choosing the right metric for real estate investing? Kelly going once. Kelly going twice. I'm not sure if Kelly just came up just to hang out, but we're going to move her down to the audience. We'll get back to our moderators this morning. Good morning, Mr. ADU. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning. DSCR versus LTV, choosing the right metric for real estate investing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rogelio Martinez, from beautiful Long Beach, California, and I specialize in value add. So that means, converting garage spaces into living square footage or adding other dwellings on a property such as an ADU. But today I'm just here to say hello to everybody, add to the discussion. I apologize because I was extremely late, so I don't know even what was discussed as of yet. But for right now, Joe, I'm just going to keep it very, very brief and just to say hello. But here to just add to the discussion. I'm so sorry that I was late.
No, it's all good. Your presence is appreciated and loved. And Rahilio has been a part of the Creative Birth Strategies from the inception. He actually was one of the motivating factors for me to create this house back in the day. So I want to thank him for being in here this morning, because we're here. We're all our service providers, but we're not selling anything. There's in the sense of an agenda. Our agenda is education, networking, and creating strategy opportunities for our listeners and our followers. Fact. And I'll just stop there. That's what we try to extend. That's what we appreciate. All the moderators here that come up, I try to vet them as best as I can. I try to meet every single one of them, have a conversation with them off Clubhouse, get familiar and comfortable with them, because I want that reflection to our listeners, whether it's on the podcast, whether it's at one of our events, whether it's at on here. I want people to feel comfortable reaching out to us and having that strategy discussion, having that networking opportunity. I'll be speaking at a bunch of events coming up over the next 3 months. I'm so excited for the opportunity of being part of every one of them, and now adding the CE piece to it and offering continuing education for licensed real estate agents to be better investor-friendly realtors in 2024. And again, it's nationwide, where I can teach it anywhere. So if an investor group would like it to be done, or a RIA, where there's a lot of realtors that come to try to get themselves educated, or a real estate association, a realtor association, or just a title company that wants to sponsor me, or insurance company to get in front of their real estate agent contacts. So please let me know if I could be of any assistance. Larry, good morning and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the discussion this morning: DSCR versus LTV, choosing the right metric for real estate investing.
Joe, good morning. Larry Grant, Premier Financial Services. I basically help businesses and real estate investors find money just through having various and a wide variety of sources, partners to go to. You've been covering this very well, so I'm not sure how much more I can add. But I will say this, that I think it's good, especially for those that have portfolios, to, at least for me, to treat the DSCR. You can look at it from a larger, more portfolio perspective. So meaning that maybe your DSCR, which reflects your cash flow, might be a little lower on one property or prospective property, target property. You can look at it in terms of your overall portfolio. So I think Shawnee and maybe a couple other, one or two others were saying that if it's more of a long-term play, you're going to have the appreciation there. Then yeah, you can sacrifice some cash flow. So you may want to look at that. So if your DSCR will meet a lender's threshold of typically, let's say, right around 125, but maybe for your own personal reasons you want it to be a little higher. If you do have one target property that's lower, but with that appreciation, then especially if you have a portfolio to balance it out, then I think it's definitely well worth the serious consideration to take down that property.
You know, Larry, I don't think enough investors look at their operating expense ratio as well. You know, why does operating expense reflect the minimized expenses relative to the revenue? I don't think people re-underwrite their properties enough once they hand it off to the property management company to understand whether they're profitable or not, you know, long term. I mean, have you seen that where you underwrite a client and they're losing money on some of their properties and they don't even realize it?
Well, there's one particular client I was trying to help with recently. Now, they were looking to take down, it was a larger commercial property. And I personally didn't feel that comfortable with it because it really wasn't, I didn't feel the cash flow was there, the return on it was there. There was something that happened along the way with the underwriting where they were able to renegotiate that down. But their play was they were confident that that property would appreciate over the next 5 years or so. So I think that's really, an investor call. I don't know if am I answering your question, but that's one that came to mind where they were willing to sacrifice that short-term return for the long-term return via anticipated appreciation.
Yeah, I created this spreadsheet called a data tape, and I have
that term.
yeah, and
It's an old term.
it is, but old school it typically works. The turtle always beats the hare. So, I put this data tape together for clients that have more than say 2 to 3 properties and above. Somebody has 50 properties, and it's amazing that when you take all the numbers into account, some of their properties are just not profitable, and and based on the loan to value that they got a loan at. And I'm like, well, the bank gave me the loan. I said, yeah, because they looked at your tax returns, they looked at the global income. They didn't look at the actual individual property income. You're actually bleeding on 2 of these properties. So it was really bizarre that that they didn't even really. I mean, I've had multiple clients losing money. They don't, and a lot of them don't take vacancy rate into account or economic vacancy rate, because I use 5%. I use 5% of deferred maintenance, and I now use at least, and if they're self-managing, 5%. If they're hiring a management company, I use 10%. No matter what they're telling me that they're paying, I use 10% if they're using property management. Are you using the same relevant numbers when you're penciling down numbers?
Yeah, I'd say that's right in the ballpark, correct.
And Larry, by the way, I privately messaged you on LinkedIn. When you get a chance, if you could respond to that as well.
Yeah, will do. Saw that. And thank you.
My pleasure, Larry. And thank you for coming up today.
Sure.
I mean, listen, we're taking deep dive in here, man. We really want to understand the metrics to understanding lending. So we're providing that insight. We want you to understand loan to value. We want to understand loan to cost. We want to understand debt service coverage ratio. You want to understand what the pricing of rates are based on all these metrics. And what the prepayment penalties look like. You need to be a savvier real estate professional more than ever if you're going to create generational wealth through investment properties, whether it's 1 through 4 units, whether it's 5 through 25 units, whether it's new construction, whether it's fixed to rent, whether it's fixed to flip. You need to be the better investor. You need to set the standard of your power team in real estate investing. Good morning, James, and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to discussion this morning, DSCR versus LTV, choosing the right metric for real estate investing.
Did you call me, Joe?
You got it. Bingo was its name-o.
Good morning, everybody. James Stout here from Berks County, Pennsylvania. Primarily a fix and flip investor now, but wanting to get into the buy and hold arena. And the numbers are the key, right? So if I'm understanding right, it seems like the more you put down, the better off your DSCR could be. But, it's all about the rates making things work. I actually, I don't know if you saw in the chat, I actually pulled up a live example if you want to go through it, or maybe it's not enough time for that. But I really appreciate hearing that you have a spreadsheet to calculate the matrices, because that's always been the fun part. Like, I hate to waste your time saying, well, what's the rate this and what's the rate that? So if I have a way of calculating it myself, that's kind of handy. And I'll be asking for, your updated spreadsheet on that. So that's very handy. So I guess that's all I have to say on that topic. I know the numbers are important, and I guess hearing you explain them over and over, it's finally starting to sink in. So I really appreciate that.
Well, listen, the average human takes about 7 times to hear something to retain. I'll do this 100 times, and I think you would appreciate that. And are you going to be coming to one of the upcoming events I'll be presenting at? I got one Monday night in Philly, one Wednesday night in Bloomsburg, then Saturday in South Jersey Investors, and I know I'm somewhere else the following week as well. Are you going to be around?
I think you're going to be at Honeybrook the week after.
Yep, I'll be in Honeybrook as well.
Yep, I'll see you at Honeybrook.
Oh, sounds great. Yeah, listen, I enjoy the smaller, granular investor group meetings. I got to meet James at one of them up in Lehigh Valley with a good friend of mine, Garrett and Tim. And I've known Garrett 18 years, 20 years now. We go, to say that you know somebody that long and you still want to hang out with them in the real estate industry is one, an anomaly, but two, amazing. It's nice to have those relationships, and we've been around each other for so long. It's just a very just like part of the fabric. And listen, these are some basic questions you need to be prepared to answer when you're working with a lender and understanding debt service coverage ratio and LTV. And you got to be confident and competent with the discussion. Okay. Couple things. One, what's your name? Two, what's your email? Three, what's your phone number? Four, what's your credit score? Don't tell me what your credit score is from Credit Karma. I will strangle you personally. That's the garbage can of all credit agencies out there. That it's just terrible. They never calculate it correctly. Use my FICO or Experian.com and pay for a soft pull on your credit report. Okay, be the best value add as well. James, can you mic your thing real quick? So then you need to know what your cash reserves are: checking, savings, retirement, lines of credit. Then the next question is, what's your LLC? Next question, what's the address of the property? I don't know what it is, right? So you need to tell me what it is, because I'm going to look it up at the same time to better understand what that property looks like and where it is and things of that nature. What's the asset type? Is it single family? Is it 2 through 4? Is it 5 through 25? Does it have a commercial space to it? Does it have any commercial presence? I want to know these things. I want to break it down. Is it a refinance? Is it cash out? Is it cash neutral? Is it a purchase? Is it a fixed bridge fixed to rent? Is it a bridge fixed to flip? Is it new construction? Is it build to rent? These are basic questions that you should be able to answer. What are you buying it for, or what did you buy it for? What are the repairs needed? What are the repairs that were completed? What's the after or after repair value or stabilized value? What's the current rent or estimated rent? Is it vacant? Does it have some type of income production currently? What's the yearly taxes? Hey, are you pulling permits? Oh, your taxes might go up if you're pulling permits to do renovations. What's the insurance? I want to know what the insurance is for the builder's risk, and then what do you think the insurance is going to be for the stabilized insurance. Then let's get into your experience. Let's talk about, do you own a home? Do you live with family? Do you rent? How many investment properties do you own currently? Today, not yesterday, today. I don't care about what you did 20 years ago. I'm sorry, it doesn't really matter. It's just fodder. Okay? I want to know how many investment properties you own today, whether it's partnership or direct ownership. I want to know how many rehabs you have completed yourself with your name as a guarantor in an LLC. I don't care if you're a real estate agent and have done it for others. I care about what you've done for yourself. How many flips have you done in the last 24 to 36 months? How many rehabs you've done for the last 24 to 36 months? How many new construction you have done for the last 24 to 36 months? If there's zero, that's fine. It's humbling, but at least you know what you have in front of you, so the lender could price the deal out correctly based on debt service coverage ratio, loan to value, loan to cost, and choosing the right metric that meets your criteria. That is real estate lending 101, 102. That's what we covered today for you to be a better real estate professional. I want to thank everybody for their engagement today. We are live on Spotify and Apple. We're now on YouTube. We are now in Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. We now have national events throughout the country with Realty 411, one of our key sponsors. Our great sponsors, Abstract National, MB Capital, where we do unsecured business lines of credit. Also, Perkatech, Yardell Perkins, that's providing social media strategy for real estate professionals. He does all this. He puts all of this together for the betterment of his clients and what we're doing here on the Creative Birth Strategies. We're at creativebirdstrategies.com. We're here every Saturday morning, 8 a.m., and every Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. I know Jim and Tim have follow-up meetings. Tim and Garrett have an evening event on Sundays. I'm busy during the week. God bless. I wish I had more time to give back, but this is where I can do it. I do speaking engagements. I'm now providing continuing education for licensed real estate agents nationwide on understanding asset-based lending. If you would like to have that discussion to assemble a class or workshop in your state, you let me know, and I'll be hopefully of assistance. And our final quote this morning, which I'd like to always finish off: stay with people who value your presence. Everybody have a great Sunday morning. Please take care of yourself. Be well. And I'll see you next week, Saturday morning, 8 a.m. and Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Be well and take care. I'll be ending the room in the next 30 seconds. And thank you.